Let's dig in. We have a bombshell in the Nancy Guthrie case. A suspect was detained overnight down in Tucson. Honestly, there has never been a better time to pull hair from a crime scene. The tech is incredible. Back in the day, you needed that entire strand, which was practically impossible to find. But once they lock onto it, forensics can work miracles. They used to require a massive, perfect hair root to pull DNA. But here is exactly what went down yesterday. Right after Savannah Cain unexpectedly walked off the broadcast set, we learned that some fresh DNA results finally hit. Investigators are tearing through this new genetic data right now. Recently, the FBI confirmed pulling DNA straight out of Nancy Guthrie's house. I am convinced they found it in her bedroom. Sources are also confirming that the evidence is just a single hair. A suspect was grabbed south of Tucson late at night. This comes weeks after SWAT teams swarmed that exact area. That previous raid had hostage negotiators waiting on standby, but it ended with the guy walking free, with 0 charges filed. Now, detectives are swarming that same spot again, but this time, the stakes are completely different. They actually have DNA. The FBI is officially on the record. They pulled DNA from Nancy Guthrie's home. Insiders say this whole case hinges on one piece of evidence found in her bedroom. Not blood, not fabric, a single hair. Instead of shipping it off to that private Florida lab, the Pima County Sheriff usually leans on for this entire case. They sent the evidence straight to FBI headquarters for high-level testing. Forensic specialists say this timing is a massive deal. Modern crime lab tech is so insane right now that even a hair missing its root, stuff that used to be totally worthless to cops, can actually generate a killer genetic profile. Crime scene techs are getting huge props for spotting this thing. Finding hair that is actually clean enough to test is insanely difficult. Back in the day, detectives absolutely needed a thick, healthy root to pull any kind of nuclear DNA. Without that piece of follicle, getting a solid match was basically impossible. But today, elite crime labs can rip data from what they call rootless hairs. They use hardcore sequencing tactics that nobody had years ago. One former San Diego police lab expert literally called this the most mind-blowing era in the history of forensic science. Rootless hair testing has leveled up so fast that tiny clues cops used to throw in the trash are now breaking major cases wide open. This changes everything here. If the hair from Nancy Guthrie's room had a root, that Florida lab would have nailed the DNA weeks ago, blowing this case wide open. But the choice to ship this stuff off to the FBI proves the root was missing or just too small for basic tests. Experts say DNA testing has a strict pecking order. The ultimate prize is hair with a fat root. Scientists can rip nuclear DNA from it, giving them a high-definition genetic map from both parents. With no root, cops fall back on mitochondrial DNA, which tracks the mother's bloodline. It clears innocent people, but it is super vague because tons of guys share maternal profiles. But let's look closer. Forensics just completely blew past those old limits. Detectives now use SNP sequencing to map out full genetic family trees using totally rootless hairs. This is the exact same brutal tech that nailed Rex Hoyerman in the Gilgo Beach killings. It solves cold cases when literally 0 other physical evidence is left behind. When you only have one single strand of hair, the margin for error is basically 0. Tammy Ballard warned this is a one-shot deal because the hair gets completely destroyed during the chemical test. If the lab techs blow it and cannot pull DNA, there is nothing left to try again. Crazy variables pop up. Was the hair dyed? How much actual DNA survived inside that tiny shaft? Even the exact length of the strand decides if detectives walk away with a real suspect profile. Meanwhile, the whole investigation plunged into chaos. Right on live TV, today's show host Savannah Guthrie teed up a segment with actress Anne Hathaway. The network threw it to commercial. But when cameras rolled again, Savannah had vanished from the desk. Hoda Kotb finished the entire interview instead. They gave viewers 0 explanation on the air. Anyone in TV knows how brutally strict those segment schedules are. For a main host to just walk off a live national broadcast means something massive and urgent just exploded. And for anyone obsessed with this missing person case, you and I know what happened next ties directly into that new DNA hit and the midnight arrest south of Tucson. Detectives are keeping their mouths completely shut about what goes to the press. What we do know is multiple forensic labs are involved. The Pima Sheriff and the FBI are aggressively reviewing different DNA files at the exact same time. Late-breaking updates threw gasoline on the rumors. Reports confirmed those DNA results dropped the exact same day Savannah Guthrie bolted from the live broadcast. Authorities were literally tearing through those results while the feds and local cops scrambled together behind closed doors. These specific events are raising some very obvious questions. Savannah bolting from the set, DNA hits landing, and an overnight detention near Tucson all went down in the exact same time frame. Authorities haven't publicly linked these events, but you and I know this timing is far from coincidence. If that DNA test yielded a clean profile pointing investigators toward a specific person or geographic hotspot, that overnight detention could absolutely be their rapid operational response to the new intel. But honestly, this brewing turf war between the sheriff and the FBI complicates how we view this case. A former Pima County undersheriff, a guy who spent 40 years inside that department, went public. He claimed the sheriff sent crime scene evidence to a private Florida lab instead of FBI Quantico just because of deep territorial grudges and personal bad blood tied to an old federal probe years ago. The sheriff completely shut those claims down, insisting he called the FBI the second Nancy vanished, and swearing both agencies have been working closely together this whole time. Still, at least one solid example shows that agency friction might have already damaged this exact case. Early on, the sheriff's office supposedly ruled out any surveillance video from Nancy's front door camera, just because her account didn't have an active monthly subscription. But after stepping in, the FBI found out Google actually saved that footage on cloud servers despite the dead subscription. Without that federal save, local cops might have permanently lost the only known image of the suspect standing right at Nancy's door. The Pima County Sheriff's Office later dropped its first public statement in weeks, confirming active cooperation with the FBI. That statement offered basically zero new details, just repeating facts the public already knew. But dropping it right as DNA results hit, and that overnight detention happened suggests mounting pressure on the department to visibly prove they're playing nice with the feds. Over the past few weeks, the FBI confirmed they successfully pulled DNA evidence from inside Nancy Guthrie's house. Many assume they found this material in her bedroom. Sources now indicate the critical piece of evidence was actually a single strand of hair. Questions are already popping up about how they found this evidence. Some wonder why the sheriff's investigative team completely missed that hair on the first pass. Others find it amazing the FBI uncovered such crucial evidence weeks after the initial search of the house. The reality here is pretty simple. The FBI dug up this evidence weeks after the Pima County Sheriff's Department finished processing the initial crime scene. Federal agents identified a hair tied to the kidnapping. Whether it got overlooked during the first sweep, or collected in a massive evidence haul and only recognized later during forensic review, is still totally unclear. But the final result is undeniable. Investigators now hold a physical piece of evidence that could expose exactly who stood inside Nancy Guthrie's bedroom. And they are testing that evidence using the most advanced forensic tech on the planet. Exactly how they recovered that hair is still completely unknown. Stick with me here. One theory points to an MVAC system, a specialized forensic vacuum built to suck trace DNA off surfaces that totally defeat normal cotton swabs. It works by blasting a sterile liquid across a surface, then instantly vacuuming it back through a heavy filter, ripping up microscopic biological material in the process. If they ran that tech inside Nancy's bedroom, they probably hit the bedding, the pillows, carpets, hardwood floors, or nightstands. If so, that single hair could have gotten sucked into an MVAC filter, only to be found way later when a lab tech finally opened it up. That scenario perfectly explains the huge gap between bagging evidence in February and the hardcore forensic analysis we're seeing right now. Regardless of how they found it, this piece of evidence completely changed the direction of the entire kidnapping investigation. Those returned DNA hits, Savannah Guthrie suddenly bailing on a live TV broadcast, an overnight police detention down near Tucson, and word that the FBI is running advanced tests on mixed genetic samples. It all proves this investigation has entered a totally different phase compared to the dead silence before. Nancy Guthrie is still missing, an 84-year-old mom whose daily heart medication hasn't been touched since the night she vanished. Her family is just stuck waiting, trying to mentally process every new twist as it drops. Ransom notes, DNA hits, police detentions that go absolutely nowhere, and others that might finally crack the case. Right now, inside an FBI lab, investigators are testing a single hair that might just hold the key to whoever walked into that bedroom. And deep inside that forensic process, the real truth might finally be coming into focus. Got info? Call 1-800-CALL-FBI or hit tips.fbi.gov. Cops just announced that the reward is now sitting at over $1.2 million. And get this, officials swear you don't even need an arrest or conviction to get that massive payout. This investigation is still unfolding, and every single twist completely reshapes how we understand this massive case. This breakdown is purely for analysis and situational awareness, built completely on publicly available reporting and sources. It definitely doesn't represent official findings or final conclusions from law enforcement. Everyone mentioned here is completely presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. We highly encourage you to check out independent reporting and other sources to get a much wider, more complete picture of this entire situation. You and I can clearly see this is now way bigger than a missing persons case. Today, you and I are tracking a complex collision of forensic science, agency, turf wars, media heat, and the agonizing uncertainty of a family desperate for answers. What started as dead silence inside an Arizona home has exploded into a massive hunt featuring advanced DNA sequencing, FBI labs, behavioral profiling, security footage, ransom demands, midnight detentions, and a massive mountain of unanswered questions. Yet despite all these dramatic twists, one chilling fact stays exactly the same. Nancy Guthrie remains missing. For weeks, this investigation felt completely frozen. Public updates dried up, official statements gave nothing away, and plenty of onlookers started wondering if detectives had just hit a brick wall. Then, suddenly, the whole case cracked wide open. Confirming that DNA was actually pulled from inside Nancy Guthrie's home added a totally new dimension. But more importantly, the bombshell that this evidence was just a single strand of hair instantly dialed up the stakes for every forensic move made behind closed doors. Hair evidence always holds a strange spot in criminal investigations. For decades, detectives knew its potential, but older tech limits meant a hair without the root was basically impossible to use in any real way. In older cold cases, a rootless hair usually meant weak evidence, stuff that might back up a wild theory, but almost never broke a case. Today, that reality is completely flipped. Breakthroughs in forensic sequencing and advanced DNA analysis have turned once useless scraps into golden evidence, capable of identifying suspects through genetic genealogy and cutting-edge profile reconstruction. That is exactly why moving this crucial evidence straight into FBI labs matters so much. It proves detectives believe this tiny sample holds hidden clues far beyond what any standard testing could find. Whether that single hair packs enough genetic material to build a full profile remains a mystery, but pulling in heavy-hitting federal resources tells us authorities see major investigative power in what they found. At the same time, this hunt is exposing a darker reality hiding just beneath the surface of so many high-profile criminal cases. The messy, tangled relationships between the agencies solving them. Public leaks from former cops are stirring up rumors of bitter turf wars between local detectives and the FBI, raising tough questions about whether bruised egos accidentally derailed key decisions. The sheriff's office completely denies these heavy accusations, insisting their tight teamwork with federal agents was rock solid from day one. But whatever the official line is, let's look at the facts together. Documented missteps are sparking serious public outrage. The biggest red flag, Nancy's front door security camera. Early on, local cops basically assumed no video existed just because her account lacked an active subscription. Yet the FBI later realized that precious footage was sitting right there in cloud storage. That single discovery flipped the case upside down, delivering the only real visual proof of a suspect lurking near her home. Without federal agents stepping in, that evidence stays buried forever. Mess-ups like that naturally make you wonder just how many other golden clues are hiding inside the evidence they already bagged. Finding that hair, weeks after the first crime scene sweep, just throws gasoline on the fire. Did they seriously overlook it during the initial search? Was it bagged up but totally ignored? Or did detectives only spot it once they finally brought in the heavy-duty forensic techway later in the game? Detectives are keeping their mouths shut, and honestly, they probably won't drop any real answers until this entire nightmare closes. Still, the crazy timing of these latest updates is getting impossible to ignore. Savannah Guthrie, vanishing from a live TV broadcast without a word, DNA results allegedly dropping that exact same day. A shady midnight detention going down just south of Tucson, Multiple labs crunching the evidence all at once while the FBI aggressively takes over. On their own, these clues prove nothing, but stack them together, and it feels like this hunt just hit a massive, urgent gear that totally blows past anything we saw last month. We have to separate rumor from fact. Public attention always moves way faster than real evidence. Internet sleuths love spinning coincidences into absolute truth, especially in heart-wrenching missing persons cases dripping with potential violence. That is exactly why keeping cool matters. Even if these DNA hits look incredible, lab work alone rarely solves a case overnight. DNA might place a suspect in the room, but context is everything. Profiles need careful reading, cross-contamination has to be eliminated, the timelines must match up perfectly. Detectives still have to figure out exactly whose DNA got left behind, along with how, when, and why it actually ended up there. And yet, despite all those clinical warnings, you and I can both feel the heavy emotional weight attached to this specific piece of evidence. Somewhere deep inside an FBI lab sits one lonely strand of hair holding the potential identity of whoever crept into Nancy Guthrie's bedroom. Just one strand. Something practically invisible to the naked eye. Something that could have easily vanished into the dust forever. And right now, that microscopic speck of biology might be the ultimate key to unlocking whatever horrors happened inside her home. That wild possibility shows just how far forensic science has rapidly evolved. Cold cases that once desperately relied on shaky eyewitnesses or forced confessions are cracking wide open today using microscopic dust completely invisible to old-school cops. Rootless hairs, degraded samples, and trace-touch DNA have completely rewritten the playbook for modern investigations. The exact same tech used to nail the Gilgo Beach killer and bust open decades-old cold cases is finally being unleashed right here. But cold tech cannot erase the human heartbeat of this tragedy. Behind every sterile lab report and plastic evidence bag sits a family forced to survive this agonizing uncertainty, day after day. Nancy Guthrie's Unachans, loved ones still wake up every morning searching for answers. Her medication reportedly sits untouched inside the house. Her daily routines stopped cold without any real explanation. Each new public update hits her closest friends and family like an emotional tidal wave. Hope tangled with fear. Possibility drowning in pure exhaustion. That heavy emotional toll stretches way beyond her immediate family. You and I get pulled into these cases because a sudden disappearance shatters our basic illusions of safety and everyday predictability. Someone can just vanish. Even with high-tech surveillance, advanced DNA testing, and massive police resources, the actual truth can stay buried for weeks or even months. This investigation forces us to realize how fragile certainty truly is. The media's role has also grown massive as the search for answers drags on. Network news, internet sleuths, and endless public rumors have dialed up the intensity on every single lead. Savannah Guthrie, abruptly leaving a live broadcast, instantly fed into the broader story. Today's true crime audience is wired to hunt for hidden clues everywhere. In this era of instant breaking news, even a basic schedule shift morphs into wild theories tied to active police work. All that spotlight brings major benefits, but massive risks too. Major public focus drives hotlines, keeps pressure on detectives, and stops the investigation from fading out of the national spotlight. But that same intense glare also breeds fake news, wild leaps of logic, and brutal assumptions about people who haven't even been charged. That is exactly why presumed innocence matters so much. A real investigation exists to uncover hard facts, not to validate online conspiracy theories. As this mystery pushes forward, the biggest hanging question is whether that gathered DNA evidence will actually give detectives a solid, usable match. If crime lab experts can build a clean profile for genetic genealogy, investigators could shrink their suspect pool dramatically. But even then, genealogy mostly hands over clues, not a slam dunk. Experts still have to map out complicated family trees. Relationships need verifying. Solid physical evidence must still back up whatever the advanced sequencing tech uncovers. Plus, there is always a chance the lab results come back completely useless. The hair might lack enough roots. Time and decay could ruin the sample. Blended DNA creates absolute nightmares for analysts. Forensic science rocks, but it is not magic. Most folks just see those quick, flashy breakthroughs on true crime shows, while the real world demands agonizingly slow lab work, constant retesting, and brutal doubt at every single step. Still, you can't deny that the hunt feels hotter right now than it has in weeks. The feds are stepping up. Press briefings are locking into sync. Tiny clues they originally brushed off are suddenly the main event. And somewhere inside that massive web of lab results, witness interviews and digital footprints, and psychological profiling, detectives are desperately trying to map out Nancy Guthrie's last known steps. Whether that recent bust down near Tucson actually ties back to her is still a mystery. Police do investigative stops all the time that never become actual charges. But the wild timing definitely sparked rumors, landing right as lab results came back and the FBI turned up the heat. The task force probably knows a whole lot more than they're telling the cameras. Or they might just be juggling 5 different theories at once while praying for a DNA match. That pure uncertainty is basically this mystery's signature trait. Let's be real, every update answers a single question but instantly spawns 3 more. Every hard fact just kicks the door open to crazier possibilities. As the days drag by, the media frenzy only burns hotter. Everyone can feel this investigation racing toward a massive make-or-break moment. Right now, though, we only have half the puzzle. Nancy Guthrie is still missing. Nobody has officially named a suspect. Crime labs keep grinding away in secret while detectives try to juggle the screaming public against keeping the case totally watertight. All we've got today is a blurry picture slowly coming together. A cryptic ransom note, grainy security video, one hair strand, cutting-edge genetic testing, federal agents, and shadowy border detentions. Not to mention police statements carefully scripted to reveal absolutely nothing. And right at the center of this storm sits a missing woman, leaving a devastating hole for everyone who loved her. These next few weeks might finally blow this investigation wide open, or just drag us back into another agonizing stretch of dead silence. But one thing is already crystal clear. This hunt has reached a boiling point where the tiniest piece of evidence could mean absolutely everything. One single discarded strand of hair might just be the exact thread that finally ties all these burning questions together. So you and I will keep watching as detectives dig and labs test, and a broken family just waits for the day when the agonizing truth finally comes out.